I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I have one after. Again, thank you guys for joining us. I'm Jackie Flynn, VP of Content at Bigger Brains, and we have Chip Reeves on the line as well. He's our CEO, founder, owner, and he's going to be moderating for us. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But we are here today to talk about new functions in Microsoft Excel with our expert, Peggy Ward from Training Dynamics. Very excited to have her. So just a few housekeeping things. You're automatically muted. If you're used to being on Zoom meetings, but not Zoom webinars, this is a little different. Everyone's automatically muted unless we unmute you. So we'd love for you to ask questions though in the chat as we go along. So Chip will send you guys all a message in the chat, so it'll hopefully ding you and you can see where it is if you're not familiar. But we encourage you to use that to ask Peggy questions. If you would like to speak, because it's easier to ask your question out loud, click the raise your hand button by your name and then we can unmute you to ask your question. And a recording of today's session will be available on our YouTube channel a few days after this, which is at Bigger Brains 743. And as always, wash your hands. So just to let you know, we do this every Tuesday at 5. And the reason we started these sessions is because a lot more people started working from home than have been previously, or working from home more and using new tools. And we have access to a lot of great teachers at Bigger Brains because we're an e-learning company. So we asked our teachers if they would be willing to give free webinars on topics that might be really helpful to people working from home. So we've been doing this every Tuesday for several weeks now. And next week's is on streamlining your Outlook with expert Kathy Jones, and then we're going to line up a couple more. We're not sure how long we're going to keep doing it or if we'll keep doing it every week, but we're going to give that some thought. But you can always stay updated on the latest registrations at getbiggerbrains.com/blog. We've been putting the latest list of sessions and the links to register in our latest blog post. So right now, if you were to go there and look at the latest blog post, you could sign up for streamlining your Outlook next week. So again, we're Bigger Brains. We have a course library of about 160 e-learning courses. Right now we have some free training available on our YouTube channel that I just mentioned. Some of it's coming down on May 31st, but right now we have Microsoft Teams Essentials, Outlook Online Essentials, Microsoft Forms Essentials, and also a Kaizala course if that's interesting to you, but that one will stay online after May 31st. So if any of those topics interest you, we encourage you to check them out before May 31st. We're going to bring them down. But all of our course content can be viewed at getbiggerbrains.com. If you're curious about what we offer and want to talk to us more about anything, we'd love to hear from you. All right, so on to today's webinar. Again, we have Peggy Ward with us today. She's from Training Dynamics, and her website is trainingdynamicsusa.com. She's a Microsoft certified trainer. She has educated thousands of professionals in Microsoft Office 365, VBA, and SQL, among other things. She also develops and facilitates customized professional development programs around such topics as emotional intelligence, communication skills, resolving conflict, and time management. She has a passion for personal and professional growth and considers it a privilege to contribute to the success of her students. Peggy is, again, one of our teachers here at Bigger Brains. She's been working with us a long time, longer than I have. So we're really happy to have her here. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and let Peggy share and get started talking about functions in Excel.
Awesome. Thanks, Jackie. All right, everybody. So today I want to spend some time talking about the new functions that are available in the new version of Excel. These are available in Excel 365 and 2019. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then I'll show you what we're going to talk about. Jackie, tell me when you can see my screen. Make sure that it's up.
Right now it's black. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I'm seeing your
okay.
Excel. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So some of you may already be familiar with the Vlookup that has been around since the dinosaur ages. But the Vlookup allows you to cross-reference data and look at a lookup table and pull information back. So in this example, I've actually done a couple of VLOOKUPs. So let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. So here I've got a list of some employee information, and I'm trying to figure out how much each employee pays for insurance and if they have any garnishments taken out of their check, so I can calculate their net pay. And you can see there's some issues here. So I've actually used the VLOOKUP. If you look in the formula bar, you can see there's a VLOOKUP here. Let me double click. It's a little closer look there. So with a VLOOKUP, the reason that I want to show you how to do an XLOOKUP is because it's basically VLOOKUP next level. So with the VLOOKUP, you have to have your lookup value all the way to the leftmost column. And then you have to count over how many columns you want it to be. So if we looked at this VLOOKUP, basically I would say, okay, go find that social security number in column A. Let's go to the lookup table. I'm pointing to the tab at the bottom there. And we would use this type of a scenario because you can see the social security numbers all the way to the left. And then I can say, okay, so once you find that social, count over to column 5 and bring back that amount. So some of you are probably already familiar with that. So
I've used VLOOKUP a lot, and I can't tell you how many times I was like, why isn't it working? And it's because my lookup value wasn't in that leftmost column.
yeah.
So I'm excited to see this new function.
Oh, it's awesome. And if you've struggled with that, most of you have probably moved it all the way to the left or made a copy or something like that. So with the XLOOKUP, we can use this scenario here where basically it can be in any order, right? So here you can see that the social security number is kind of mixed in with the data. So we're going to want to find the social security number and then bring back the garnishment or the premium amount that goes with that social. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to go back to the employee list and I'm going to get rid of my VLOOKUPs. Now, the other thing that's really cool about this, before I start, let me tell you, I'm so excited. So not only can it be in any order, but all those NAs that you saw, if it's not found in the list, in other words, Elizabeth Fern, she does not have insurance. So it brings back this NA. And again, a lot of you have seen that. So then you have to add in if error or some kind of, you have to nest another function around it to solve that problem. So the XLOOKUP takes care of that too. So I'm going to start by entering equals XLOOKUP. And when I'm teaching, I like to open the function arguments window so you can see really clearly what I'm doing. And I can just click this FX button here and that'll open the function arguments window. So just like the VLOOKUP, I'm going to put the lookup value in. So that would be the social security number. That's how I'm going to identify that person. Then the lookup array is on the other sheet. What I would highlight the column that the social security number's in. So this is just one column. In a VLOOKUP, this would say table array, which would be multiple columns. This is lookup array, which would be one column. So I'm going to go to the other sheet and I'm going to click column K. That's where the social security numbers are. The return array will be where the insurance premium is. So I'm going to click in that box and it pops me back to where I started. And that's fine. I'm just going to go back down and click the tab again. And then I'm going to click on column J. So look in column K for the social, then bring back the corresponding value in column J. Now, this next box is what takes care of those NA values. So what do you want to happen if there's nothing found? In other words, the social security number is not there. And I would just want it to bring back a 0. Now I can type whatever I want in this box. So if I type text, I would just put quotes around it. So if it doesn't find that social, what do you want it to return? And in the match mode, do you know what this is in VLOOKUP, Jackie?
I'm familiar with it, but if you ask me right now on the spot, no.
This is where people are like, what? So usually people are going to put the word false in here just because the guy in the next cubicle told them to, but they're not really sure why. But what it means in the VLOOKUP is that it's going to bring back an exact match. If I didn't put anything in that in the VLOOKUP, it would look for something close, which is kind of goofy. So in the VLOOKUP, you have to put either 0 or false. Here it defaults to exact match. So you could leave it blank and you're taken care of. But if you put a 0, that's also exact.
That's
Are there any questions on that? Does anybody have any questions on that last box? Because that's usually one of the things I get questions on.
Yeah, type your questions in the chat if you have them. Yeah, to me, that's so much smarter that the default would be exact match, because you wouldn't want it to do like what you call like a fuzzy match unless you told it to. Like there
Yeah, and
are cases for that, but
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that question about like why is it default to close match?
can
So
you
someone's
explain
asking,
it? Go ahead.
go ahead, Jackie.
There's just someone asking you to explain it again, Peggy. So maybe just go through one more time a little slower on what the match mode means.
Okay, so I'm going to explain it by doing a VLOOKUP really quick. So if I do a VLOOKUP and I say, okay, bring back the social, I got to use this table over here where the social is all the way to the left, right? Because I'm using VLOOKUP, okay? And then I would count over what column is in insurance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's this one. Now, if I leave this last box blank in the VLOOKUP, then it brings back a value for every single person. But I happen to know that Elizabeth Fern does not have insurance. So by leaving that box blank in a VLOOKUP, it brings back the closest thing it can find. So it couldn't find Elizabeth's social, so it was like, this one's close, let me just bring back that one. So in a VLOOKUP, we've always had to either put false or 0 in that box so that it knows to only bring back the exact match. So in this case, if it doesn't find Elizabeth's social, then it would bring back that NA. See that? So in the, does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
So in the XLOOKUP, when you get to that part, let's go back to where we were. We got social. We're going to go over here, look for the social array. Go back. I don't really like how it flips back and forth, but hey, we take what we can get. So in this one, the match mode, it would automatically bring back an exact match. So it's not like the VLOOKUP where we had to put something in that box, because if we left that box blank, we would get those close matches and it would kind of throw us off.
Right. So the default now is false. The default now is false, which to me is much more logical.
Right. But you could put a 1 or you could put true, which would say bring back a close match. But I would say 0.009% of the time you're going to want something like that.
Right.
So if it's not found, we'll do 0. We want an exact match. We can put 0 there if we want to, or we could leave it blank. And real quick, this is a kind of a, off, but see how the first 3 boxes, those labels are bold? That means that those arguments are required. And if they're not bold, then you could leave these blank and it would just take the default value. But you have to put something in these first 3 boxes.
So if you don't put something in if not found, would it come back blank or NA?
Let's see. It would come back NA.
Okay.
So if we put 0 in if not found, then instead of Elizabeth having NA, it would bring her a 0. So that is what we used to have to use, the if error, or is NA, I think started in 2016, which was nice. But this XLOOKUP is just, it makes that whole thing so much easier.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it one more time for the garnishments and I'll talk through it. So we put the function in, equals XL, and I'm pressing tab to get that to finish. And then I'm going to click this insert function button to get my arguments window open. And then I'm going to decide how I will identify that person. That's the social. Then I need to tell it where to go find the socials. This is always, I would say most of the time, in another list. So I would go to that other tab and I'm going to tell it, this is the column that has the socials. And then I have to tell it what column has the value that I want it to bring back to my main list. So I click there, and don't let that mess you up. It kind of switches back to the other sheet. So you have to click on the tab again and then select the column. If they don't have a garnishment, I want it to bring back a 0, and I'll just leave that last box blank. I'm going to click OK. And there it is. Yay.
And I don't know if everyone knows what you're doing with that double click on the fill handle.
Oh, let me go back then. So a lot of people will copy and paste, but I'm just going to put my pointer over that autofill handle and double click the corner right there. And it fills the formula down.
And you don't have to use any absolute references because they're built into the function, right?
No, absolute references are not built in, but the style, what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the entire column.
Oh, right.
So since I'm not filling it horizontally, it's not going to make a difference.
Right.
But if I was gonna copy the formula horizontally, then I would want to lock those in. And you can lock in a reference or make it absolute by pressing F4. I'm going to highlight it, press F4 on my keyboard, and those dollar signs, they make it absolute, which means it's locked in, so it won't shift around when you copy it.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
That's a good question, Jackie.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on this? Anybody else? I have more stuff. Are we ready for the next function?
Yeah, we don't have any more questions. Oh, wait. Lookup value is a cell in your example, but the arrays are the entire column. If your lookup value was the column, would it work?
That's a good question. So I've seen it work both ways. Now, when I teach it, I always have them select a value because it doesn't have to be a column. The lookup value itself doesn't have to be a column. Now, I know this works with a VLOOKUP, but I haven't tried it with the XLOOKUP. So let's see, instead of putting just A2 like this, let's see if we select column A like that. Let's see. I don't know, I'm having my doubts.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
Yeah, I think that it wouldn't, it doesn't want to work. Why is it putting an at? Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure. It may be because if you'll look here, it's a different type, it's a different number of cells in the array too. So that could have something to do with it. So like if I select this whole column, there's 2 cells at the top.
I can't think of the word for it, but you know when you're writing an SQL query and you don't have enough table joins and you get like a mess of rows back, it basically it's not giving it enough information because it's saying search this whole column A for this whole column over here, and there's just a bunch of matches and it doesn't know what to do.
Let me explain why it works to just have a reference here. So when I do this XLOOKUP, I'm just doing it for one person at a time. So I'm just doing it on this row. So I'm saying, hey, in cell F2, I want to bring back the insurance value for this social on A2. But it doesn't know where it's going to be over here. So I'm telling it, look in the whole column, and it could be anywhere in this list. So that's why it works to select an entire column for the lookup. But the lookup value itself is just going to be, it's only looking for one value or one social in that column. So that's why it's okay to pick just that one number. And then whenever you fill this down, I double click that corner, when we get to this one, see now it's using the social on row 3, see that? And then as it goes down, it uses a social on the appropriate row. So hopefully that helps with that question.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's go ahead and move on, and then if you have more questions on this one, feel free to ask them. We can always jump back.
Yeah. So the next function I want to show you is ifs. So one of the hardest functions that I've taught in my classes is nesting ifs together. So this is where you have multiple scenarios and you want to check it to see if it meets a condition, and if it meets one condition, then it would return a certain thing. So in this example, I'm trying to figure out how much commission to pay based on the profit. So my thresholds or my parameters would be if they reach $1,000, they get 10% of that. But if they get to 500, they only get 5, 200 would be 2%. So I need to evaluate the profit and then decide what rate they get. So normally, if you use nested ifs, it turns into this gigantic, monstrous function, and it's really hard to navigate. So ifs allows you to do this pretty easily. So I'm going to put the ifs function in. It's just IFS. I'm going to open up my little window here because I just like that. And I'm going to come up with my first test. Now, I'm looking to see if it's greater than something, right? So if it's greater than 200, they get 2%. But think about this, if it's greater than 200, it could also be greater than 1,000, right? So the rule is if you're using the greater than comparison, then you start with the highest number. If you're using the less than comparison, you would start with the lowest number. So I'm going to say, okay, my test would be this profit is greater than or equal to this value. Now this is where that absolute reference comes in, because when I fill this down, I don't want it to change off of T4. So all I did was press F4 on my keyboard to get those dollar signs. So if the profit is greater than 1,000, then what do I want to happen? I want to multiply the profit times 10%, F4. So anytime I click on something in this table, I'm going to put, make it an absolute reference. So my next condition could be that the profit is greater than or equal to 500. F4. If that's true, then I want to take the profit and multiply it times 5%. And that's in that table on the side, so it gets dollar signs. Now, this formula is covering up those other two cells and I need to click on. I'm going to show you a little trick that I use. So my next test would be logical 3, and notice there's a scroll bar right there. If I can go down and see, you can do, I think it was, I pulled it up in Google. What was it? 200 and, let's see. I want to say it's like 127.
What an odd number.
I don't recommend that. I recommend, if you're going to get up that high, I recommend you learn VBA or something else. Like, yeah, but you can do 127. So my third test, we're just going to do 3, would be the profit is greater than or equal to. Now I can't click on, oh, it let me. So I clicked on that cell even though it was covered up. So see how it put T2 in there, F4. If that's true, I want the profit multiplied times U2 there. So I'm just having it look at each one, and then I'm gonna click OK. Oopsie, problem. So the problem is that if it's none of those, it gives me an NA.
Right.
So I have a little secret hidden over here. So what the ifs is missing is the false part. So the false part is, hey, if none of these conditions are true, what would you do, right? So if you put true for your last test, and then you can tell it what to do if that last one is there. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to click FX to open that window back up. And to take care of these NAs, I want to add a 4th test. I'm just going to type the word true and then tell it what to do, which would be 0. So in other words, if none of those other conditions are met, or if none of those other conditions are true, then put a 0.
So instead of putting something in there that you're evaluating, you're just assuming it's true, so that it gets all the fallout, kind of.
Yeah, anything that's not covered by all of the other tests would fall into this category. Okay. So in a single if statement, you have the test, the true part, and then the false part. So this doesn't have a false part anywhere. So anything that doesn't meet a condition just gets this NA. So this is how you take care of that. So double click the corner. Anything that was NA is now 0. Oh, I love this. I don't know if anybody else gets happy about this kind of stuff.
I do.
I get happy about this stuff.
Sometimes I miss Excel. I don't use it that much lately. Not for this kind of stuff. I use it for like data information, but not numbers. So.
Yeah. Anybody watching have any questions? Or I found that the Microsoft support is pretty good at showing examples of these new functions. So if you Google new functions in Excel, there's 6 of them. So this is 2. You've got the X lookup and the ifs, and then I'm going to show you 2 more. But then you've got, so what would that leave? 2 other ones. So I think it's like max if and min if. Like we have a sum if and a count if. Now I'll have a max and min if.
Yeah.
So no questions on this one?
No questions yet.
Good. All right. So I'm going to go to the last tab. Now, life-changing moment. You ready? So concatenate. A lot of us have been using this for years and years and years, and the concatenate function allows you to join text together. I see you laughing at me, Jackie.
I just like that word.
I know, it's funny. So there's a new function called concat. This is how it works. You ready? So let's say I just want to join these 3 items together with no delimiter. A delimiter would be like a space or something separating each one. So I can do that by typing equals, concat, select the items that I want to join, close it off, enter, and there it is. Oh, that's it.
Nice.
So concatenate is a little bit more clunky because you have to put a delimiter between each one, like if you want a space or something like that. So the evolution of concatenate is called text join. Watch how this works. So text join. I'm going to open up the little window so you can see all the arguments. And so that you put the delimiter one time, and then you just list the text. So let's say I want that. Now this works if you're using the same delimiter. So let's say I just want a dash. Okay, so I type that in, and then I want to ignore empty cells. In other words, don't join anything that's not there. And then I'll say, okay, the first thing would be the social. The second thing would be the last name. The third thing would be the first name. So the difference between what you're about to see and concat is that it puts dashes in there. Oh, yeah. See how it puts the dashes between the name and the social?
Right.
So I think we still have concatenate too. Yeah, concatenate is still there.
What's the difference? Sorry. What's the difference between concatenate and concat?
Concatenate, you can't, well, you can. Concatenate allows you to, what is it doing? I just did something that I don't know what I just did.
Yeah, what did it do?
I'm not sure. So let's say if I go equals concatenate like that, and I just highlight like this.
Huh.
It's splitting it into 3 cells. I don't know what's happening, but let me go back. Okay, so I think I just learned something new by accident. So concatenate, you have to actually put the delimiter between each one. So I can say, okay, after the social, I want a space, and then I want the last name, and then between the last name and the first name, I want a comma space, and then I want the first name. So it's like, it's more precise. You can put a different delimiter between each one. So concat, there's no delimiter. Text join, you pick one delimiter that goes between everything.
Okay.
You can't be so specific there.
So the benefit of concat is just that you could select, it's just easier to select a bunch of things in a row, because otherwise you could just use concatenate without a delimiter.
Right. So a lot of the times I use concatenate to create some kind of a lookup value or something to use in a Vlookup. And so if I just want to join their, department and their last name or something, I just put them together really fast. And so that's just kind of like the down and dirty, get it done quick kind of version of concatenate.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I have to show this, I want to say most people know this, but I've found in a lot of my trainings that people don't know about flash fill. And so, like, for instance, if I wanted to just put the first and last name together, if I type Angela Berry like this, that's how I want all the names to look. When I start to type the next person's name, see how it automatically kind of assumes that's what I want right there? So all I have to do is press enter. So if you have not used flash fill, it's a lot easier than any of these that I've shown you. But the reason you might use one of the functions is to nest it inside of another function. Maybe it's more of a variable type value, where this is just like, I need to create a column and restructure my data really fast.
So that just creates text. Like, there's no function there. It's just populating text really fast.
Right. Flash fill populates text. And look at this. I can do, let's say I just want to do AB for Angela Berry, and then this would be Fred Chase. So now on this one, it's not picking it up automatically. So you can do this. You can create a couple of them, highlight them, grab that little corner. You can either double click or drag it down, but say I drag it and then I get to see how it's just repeating A, B, F, C.
Mm-hmm.
You click this little tag, you can choose flash fill here. So if flash fill doesn't automatically happen, I can manually choose it. And now it's going to pull out these initials. And this one's a little tricky. Look what it did right here. So, so sometimes it will, it'll do this, but I did learn from another instructor that if I fix this one and there's anything that it did similarly, it'll automatically start fixing them. It's very smart. It's almost scary smart.
So we do have a request from someone who wants to see you demonstrate flash fill again because they think it's witchcraft. They didn't say that. I just added that part.
All right. So let's do this again. Witchcraft a little bit. Okay, so the goal is to join the first and last name together with a space. So I'm going to type the first name, space, last name. Nothing happens until I start to type the name on the second line. So I'm going to start to type Fred. All I did was type the F, and this happens automatically. So to accept that, I just press enter. That's literally how easy it is. Now, if it does not happen automatically, we saw this here. So if I did AB for Angela Berry and FC for Fred Chase, it didn't come up. See, when I started to type F, nothing happens. So in this case, I could just force it to happen. I'm going to select my entries. I'm going to point to the autofill handle and drag it down. Not what I want. So I click this tag at the bottom and I would select flash fill. So it's a couple more steps, but it's still going to save you hours. And again, there might be a couple in there that you have to fix, but flash fill, after you fix one or two of them, it'll start to pick up on what you're trying to do and it'll start fixing the ones down below.
So basically it's like Excel is, like you said, picking up on what you're trying to do and offering to do it for you. It's like your not secretary, personal assistant. They're like, hold on, I see what you're doing here. Let me just do it for you real quick.
It's witchcraft.
Yeah, it's witchcraft.
I don't know. I think there's a little dude that lives in Excel that can read our mind or something. I don't know.
But so after you do it, it is just a value, right? So like if somebody's last name changed and you change their last name in column D, it's not going to automatically change column F.
Say that again.
So it's when you do the flash fill, it's just pasted values essentially, right? So it's
right.
If you go back and change somebody's name, if their last name changes, the value that's in the flash filled column doesn't automatically change.
That's right. So if I change, we won't change David's last name. He might not like that. Let's choose Smith. So it's not dynamic. Once you do flash fill, it's a static value. I do see a question. Did y'all see the one somebody asked, is there a function that does the opposite of
the Q&A? Yeah.
So I'm going to answer that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So to do that, I'm going to insert some columns. And let's just say that I want to break these social security numbers down into 3 columns. And I want to...
Real quick, Peggy, sorry, for those who don't know what the question is, so somebody had asked, is there a function that does the opposite of concat or text join or concatenate? That's the question that she's answering.
So the opposite of concat, which is join, would be to separate. So there are functions that will do this. I don't know how much time we have. Am I okay for 5 minutes?
Yeah, go for it.
So if let's say I want to take these socials and I want to break this into 3 sections across 3 columns, I can use something called text to columns. This is not a function, but let me show you really fast. It's on the data tab. It's in the, where is it? There it is. In the data tools section, there's text to columns. And it's got a dash between the sections I want to break up. So I would use a delimiter, which is a separator. Click next. I'm going to tell it to use that dash as a separator. See how it knows where to split it because of the dash. On the next screen, I'm going to tell it where to put the new data. So I don't want it to put it over the top of the old data. I want it to start here. So I'll still have the social intact and I'll have 3 new columns. When I click finish, I've broken it apart. So that's text to columns. It's worth a YouTube video. It's really cool. The other option, if you want to use a function, there's functions. One is called left, one is called right, and one is called mid. So if let's say I wanted to get the last 4 of the social security numbers, I would start with equals and I would type right because I want to get the values at the end of the text string, which would be on the right-hand side. So it's asking for the text, that would be the social that I'm pulling it from, and then it wants to know how many you want. So I want 4 starting on the right, and there's my last 4. So naturally, if I wanted the first 3, I would use left. And if I wanted the middle ones, I would use mid. And mid is a little bit trickier, but they all kind of work the same as far as like you tell it what text to pull from and where you want to start and how many you want.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Anything else? Did we already do the flash fill?
Yes. Can you change the order in text join? For example, could you do SSN first name, last name?
Yes, so when we do text join equals text join, let's open up our little window. So what was it first? Was it social first, last?
Yeah.
So you can do this in any order. The only limitation is that you have to have the same delimiter. So let's say we want to use a space. I'm just going to press the space bar. So see how it puts a quotes around a space? And then I'm going to do ignore empty, which is true. 1 equals true. And so I would say, okay, the first thing I want is social. The second thing I want is first name. And the third thing I want is last name. And it's going to put a space between each one because I only get 1 delimiter. So yes. So text join, you can do it in any order because you build it one at a time. Concat, you have to highlight like a range. And so it's concat, so it's going to be the order that it's in. You don't have control over the order unless you move the columns.
Makes sense. Did you have another function you wanted to show, or do you want to see if people have questions? How are you feeling?
That's all I have prepared. So if anybody has questions, I'll be happy to.
So everyone, we can answer any Excel question. Peggy is an expert. If you have, a simpler, I know, anything, I promise. No, we'll do our best to answer any question you have. We got a couple Excel experts on here. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions about anything that you've been trying to do lately, or the functions that we've seen here, difference between Excel 2019 and Excel Online, whatever you got. We'll give it a few minutes.
If anybody needs me to show like repeat anything I've done too, because I know we had to go pretty fast, but there's a lot of really good videos out there. I learned this stuff by hunting around on Google too. So now that you've got like the basic of what it is, you could watch a video or Google it and see some different examples. That's always helpful.
Well, we also have some great Bigger Brains Excel courses also.
Do you have like little brain bites on the on Excel functions and things like that?
Not brain bites, not micro courses. We've talked about doing it. We need somebody to help do it, but we do have a lot of Excel breakout courses. So we have like a specific course on pivot tables, a specific course on dashboards. I think you did the dashboards course actually. We did a specific course on Power Pivot, specific course on using Excel for project management, things like that. And then of course we have all the Excel basics, Excel advanced, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Excel has so many things that it just can go on and on. It's exciting to see some of the new things that they're streamlining too.
Well, your training is so good, we don't have any questions.
Yay!
Oh, now we do.
Ooh.
June is asking, can you flip a horizontal list that runs left to right to be vertical up and down?
For $5, I can show you how to do it. So here's a list that's going vertical. I don't have a, well, I don't have a horizontal list. So like, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to a new sheet. And all I'm going to do is before I paste, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to this option called transpose. Is that what you're asking, June? It would be the same if it was already horizontal. You just highlight it, copy it, and when you paste it, you choose transpose and it puts it vertical.
So it's a paste special option, kind of like pasting values versus whatever, formulas and stuff like that. Paste special.
Yeah. And the only other way to do that would probably be to throw it in a pivot table and drag and drop it in the column or row if it's set up for something like that.
I've definitely done that manually before.
Have you not used transpose before?
I haven't needed to in a while. I've known about it since I helped film our Excel courses. So I don't think I've needed it since then, but I know I've done it manually before that. And it's like, I wonder if it was, I'd like to think it wasn't available yet, but it probably was.
Well, I only know this stuff because I teach it all the time. I can't imagine that anybody would know all these little things that are in there. Mm-hmm. There's no way to know everything. And what were we saying, Chip? It's the little things that are hard to remember.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot that.
Any other questions, guys?
I think we've answered all the questions.
Did I go too fast?
No.
I thought you did an excellent job, truly.
Oh, thank you. Well, I love this. Hopefully this helps somebody and they can use some of these. Now remember that these functions are only available in the newer versions. So if you're still using 2016 or something like that, you're not going to be able to use these. And if you have, let's say you have Office 365 or the newer version of Excel, but somebody else does not, they're not going to be able to use these functions in their version. They would have to have the updated version too. So that is one of the disadvantages here.
Well, if you want to stop sharing, I'll close us out.
We do have a quick question. Russell's asked, what key was that you held down on transpose?
So it's literally when I right click it under paste options, it's the fourth one over. It's called transpose. So I did not use a keyboard shortcut. I'm not sure what the keyboard shortcut is. It has a T there. But also, if you use Control C and Control V, if you do Control V, there's a little tag down here when you paste, and you can choose transpose from there also after the fact.
Cool.
Awesome.
My uncle's name is Russell Williams. That's not my uncle. You're not my uncle, are you? That's weird.
Can you give me back sharing? Or maybe you don't need to. I don't know.
Stop sharing.
Not sure.
Nope, he's not my uncle. Okay.
You're too on top of it. I can't tell you anything. You're like, oh, I already saw it. Okay. So, you guys are seeing my slides, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So thank you guys so much. I think this was a really good session. I learned a lot, and thanks for some really great questions too. And as we've mentioned, Peggy is one of our teachers here at Bigger Brains, which means she's in our videos. Most recently, she taught Mastering Outlook 2019. And before that, so all of our Mastering Outlook courses, basics and advanced, are Peggy. And also SQL for non-technical professionals. So if you have been curious about database querying, but you don't have experience, it's a great place to start. And then the next thing we're filming with Peggy is time management in Outlook, which will be a shorter course just focused on ways to use Outlook to better manage your time or stay organized. So it'll be like more of a quick hit kind of course that we're excited about as soon as it's safe to film again, basically. So again, our next session is next Tuesday at 5 with Kathy Jones. She's doing streamlining in Outlook. So I haven't talked to her yet, so I don't know how similar that's going to be to your time management in Outlook course, but we'll find out. And again, you can go to our blog at getbiggerbrains.com if you want to register for that. You do need to register ahead of time. And that's it. I'm going to stop sharing. Oh. Okay, so I think we're done unless there's any last questions or anybody. Peggy?
No, I'm all jacked up now because I've been doing Excel. So.
Excel, so exciting. All right, guys.
No, thank you for having me and let me do this. I hope this helps somebody. Good luck out there in Excel land.
Good luck in Excel land, yes. Thank you again, everyone. Again, this will be on YouTube, so if you found it helpful and want to share it, that'll be available soon. And we appreciate you joining us today.